welcome, Vinu. Are you able to join us on stage? Where
Yeah,
where are you?
I am. Unfortunately, I registered my name as Rakshita. She is my junior architect. So please, we are still making baby steps in this world. So we are not able to change the name. So for the time being, I'm taking the name of Rakshita.
Yes, of course. Are you able
And
to,
yes.
if you click on the stage, you're able to walk forward? And we're all here upstairs. It's kind of crazy to
Oh,
say
okay.
upstairs.
We have to, no,
I
we have
see.
to
I
walk
see you're
upstairs.
down here, right?
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
you use
We
the
have
mouse
to.
and you click on the floor in front of you, you're able to walk forward. And
Oh my God! Okay. I just went somewhere else. We have to go upstairs. Yeah.
or you can
I
use,
think I am.
you can also use the keys, the W, A, S, and D to walk.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Wonderful. This is nice.
All right, so let's give a round of applause. Well,
This is this is very new for me, and I believe.
thank you,
So
Vino, for
I
joining us. And I'd
believe
like to introduce you really quick. For anyone that doesn't know who you are yet, which is not going to be a lot of people, but still, it's amazing having you on stage. And thank you so much for joining us. And for those that don't know, Vinu Daniel, he completed his bachelor's in architecture in 2005 in the College of Engineering, Trivandrum, following which he worked with Auroville Earth Institute of UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, post-tsunami construction. And then returning to Pondicherry in 2007, he started Wallmakers. And Wallmakers, the name came at first because they were doing a compound wall, if I'm not mistaken. And then many of these eye openers in the course of his practice prompted him to resolve and devote to his energies towards the cause of sustainability and cost-effective architecture. His practice spanning over more than a decade, Wallmakers has won many international accolades, including being selected by Arc Daily as the only Indian practice in the list of 20 young practices of 2020, winning 3 editions of Design That Educates Award conducted by the Laka Foundation Germany, being featured in the Indian Pavilion London Design Biennale 2021, being nominated for the Brick Award 2022, and the IHA residence being featured in the Chicago Atheneum, the Museum of Architecture and Design, to name a few. And it's amazing to have you here to talk about your work, the work of Wallmakers, and inspire us with what you have done. So thank you very much, Vinu, and the stage is all yours.
thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's surreal for me to this is my first time in this kind of space. So without much further ado, I will start my presentation. As the as the presenter very well told that I started from humble beginnings because when we started Earth Architecture, we wanted to do something eco-friendly, and being eco-friendly wasn't something which was very much considered as a big thing at that point of time, and people were really moving into the stage of fast and modernized architecture, like supersized and super, like so many glass structures and stuff like that. So it was difficult for me to get a start even. Even the few people I knew weren't ready to give me a project. So what we are basically doing is we wanted to simply start, and what you see here is I'm trying to share my presentation here. So as the presenter rightly said, we started with a compound wall. So are you able to see this particular picture I'm sharing? Is it possible to see? Can you see?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic. So this is my brother who was really studying at that period of time. So as you can imagine, nobody would even work with me. So it was very difficult to even get people to work with me. So obviously siblings become your automatic people who help you out at your initial stage. So this is my brother Praveen Kaupalama, who is standing in front of the wall. So this was my first first basic construction that I ever did. The background wall which you see is filled with mud bricks and beer bottles. These were the basic materials we had to start off our construction. So we really wanted to do something rather than keep talking and like not really working it out. And we thought even if it was a small compound wall, this is fine. We will start with this. So my first questions were very simple: whether we could use mud in construction, and I didn't have to reinvent the wheel because mud was a very prominent material, building material that generations of us have used. And initially I thought like it would be a bit difficult, but it became really difficult initially. We found out that mud bricks were like very useful, and they were very hydrophilic in nature, which helped us to make simple constructions and slightly more complex, because I was also somebody who studied all these modern architects like David Chipperfield, Zadi, Santiago Calatrava. All these people were my idols too. But I thought, is there a way that I can reach them via vernacular architecture or via poor man's materials, or ecologically sensitive materials? Can I do something which is not exactly traditional, but yet it uses all the qualities of traditional construction and do it. So what you are seeing here is that I slowly formulated a team, convinced few people, and this big wonderful gentleman here is a very famous singer. His name is Dr. KJ Yeshudas. He's bestowed with many awards. He's literally a demigod for us. And KJ Yeshudas was somebody who was open to ideas that we can build with eco-friendly materials, and he wanted to donate a building for a worthy cause. People who got cancer because of water polluting in the banks of Kerala. Because I hail from Kerala, and my initial practice, I thought it would be wise for me to start with people hailing from Kerala and start projects in Kerala. Though we were a very tropical country with a lot of rainfall, I thought mud construction is still something which should prove its mettle in Kerala. So here you see us just compressing a bit of mud and making it into a block. You can see in this basic picture. Now, one of the advantages of mud brick was that it could really form into different shapes and sizes and structures. And as an architect, as a modern day architect, we are armed with all these theories and technical drawings and everything, that we can actually make these kind of structures possible. So what you see on the right is us teaching few other fellow student architects how to make arches, make vaults, as you see on the left side. That is a vault which has openings literally filled with beer bottles and stuff. So slowly we started to engage our work with our workers in a different model altogether. We started to experiment. Now, experiment as such, I didn't get into the process of experimenting with materials at that particular point of time. This is way back in 2009 or 2010. I didn't get into much experimentation with it, because these are all materials where I was trying to find a new space. How can I utilize the waste of wasted materials, like what you are seeing in this picture is something like a beer bottle, and you can see that we were trying to make use of all these wasted materials into no forms and format. So I learned the mud brick from Auroville Earth Institute, which is situated in Auroville. They are an experimental and a wonderful eco-sensitive institute which teaches many students, including myself, about the merits and the values of mud bricks and constructions. So you can see how the interiors typically changed into, more, the vernacular slowly started to look a bit more different. You can see this is a church. So we got bold in our construction. We found out that mud brick is something, amazing, which can have different forms and variations, and we can create wonderful spatial qualities with this poor man's material. This is literally taken from your ground. And as you can see with in the previous picture where me and Yeshudas were making a simple mud brick, So we could do these constructions without much steel, or literally in this particular construction there is just 4 lengths of steel used, which is which is uh, literally negligible in this particular entire building. Only 4 lengths of steel were used. You can see us making these like mud brick domes, mud brick walls. So me and my people started to understand that like we are capable of doing something very different. But even then, we found out that there are certain limitations in going forward. We understood that experimentation is the way we have to go forward. We are not going to go anywhere if we are not experimenting. So this particular structure is done with jute sacks. Now, this in technical terms, this is called econoid. Econoid is simply a twisted cone, which structurally forms a very big pavilion. So you can see this was made for the Biennale, which was conducted, not just Venice Biennale, but there is a Indian Biennale as well. This is conducted in the banks of Kerala every biannually. And the Biennale is something which is kind of a very celebrated occasion for the artists of India. And we also invite artists from all across the world, hosted by the KBF, Kochi Biennale Federation. And they actually asked us to build this particular conoid. So what you should understand in this particular structure is that this is done using jute sacks and a bit of concrete. So it's called a ferrocement jute sack pavilion. It has a span of 23 meters, which is quite, amazing compared to the kind of loads that were applied on it. So an easy assumption would be somewhere around 75 tons of load would be on top of the roof, even while we were building this. And we could achieve such a structure because of the craft which we developed over the years. This I'm fast forwarding all our works over a period of time into such fast this thing. So kindly pardon me for moving along a bit fast, or like this. So you can see at one corner of this place there are a lot of people who are sitting there, because jute sack concrete, obviously it will shape into a small curve, and then it turns up into the roof portion in the other side. So you can see people relaxing. This is the kind of format which I wanted to do. Am I audible to all of you guys? I'm sorry, I'm just talking like very freely. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so coming back to the point, so we were slowly experimenting into larger scale projects, which is when yesterday I was talking at the Bartlett School of Architecture, and the director, Mr. Marcus Cruz, a very great person whom I admire a lot after hearing a lot about him. The director, Marcus Cruz, asked me something which was very important. So many a time during talks, I forget to say how long I took experimentation to bring it to the forefront, as one can say. So I thought that like I often forget to explain that particular fact while we were doing this. Simply this picture and the first picture I showed had a gap of 8 years in between. The first picture was taken in 2006, and this picture is something happening in 2014. So simply that itself had a gap of 7 to 8 years. All our works have that much of gap actually. So with this architect Marcus, the director Marcus, actually asked us a question saying, how long does an experimentation takes to come in the forefront? So next I would love to talk about this journey of achieving these kind of these kind of spaces. So here you can see me and architect Shobhita, who initially found out. So in my scenario, I found out that like making the mud bricks itself is a big task, because Kerala has a lot of rains. We had to slowly start doing something in a different mode. Maybe see what other typology of modules I can make. So what you are seeing right now here is a module which we called it as shattered debris wall, where we have filled it with debris, as you can very well see in the middle part. We had filled it with debris, a bit of cement here and there, and a lot of red soil and everything. So our initial trial was this way back in 2010. So here you can see we came across a particular project which was quite in the middle of a lagoon, and you can see the green part which you are seeing in the forefront of the picture is actually not green. It is water hyacinth. It is water. So this particular land was completely covered with land on all, completely covered with water on all four sides. That any access to this piece of land was almost difficult. And we found out that there was a lot of debris, waste construction debris that was left in the ground. So we thought, why not make a make something, different with it. So as you can see, we were mixing up all these waste aggregates, with a bit of soil, mixing it up with a bit of water. We made a small structural, framework with the least of reinforcement. You can see rammed earth walls here. You can see that rammed earth is also already an established type of construction, and then you can see how we were trying to fill the debris inside such a wall. You can see that, like one part we use something like a cement aggregate blocks, and in the other part we use something where this waste was all filled up inside a mesh. You can see one good mason of ours, Mr. Vijayan, who is actually filling up this with this waste materials. He's doing all the spreading up and everything, and we are just filling it with waste debris. And the important part is it holds up. It is very strong, and we found out that the dry compressive strength of this particular material goes well beyond 5 MPa megapascal, which is quite adequate for like single and double door story structures. And after doing this, we generally coat our steel with XPS, styrobuta triethylene, which is a protective foam from oxidizing because of the advent of mud material. So let's see what is our final product after that. So this is what the final product that came after that. So one can see we didn't go for something which was considered as an ethnic or a vernacular style. We went for something very modern, which we wanted to showcase that modern materials or modern language is possible with such materials. You can see myself and my very good friend and colleague Fawaz Kangilan sitting in the drawing room where we are we are literally surrounded by these debris walls. So this was the birth of debris walls in the initial scenario. So then debris walls initially were quite made with a bit of so then we thought, why not we will extend it further? Why not we give it curves? Can we do curves with this kind of construction? So our initial ideas were actually more of failures. We initially, before this particular project happened, we had some few failures. We found out that our compositions were not right, and then slowly we started to gain more skill, more experience in making such kind of structures. We found that we could actually make quite a twisting tail, different kind of construction. You can see on your right side is random, and on your left side you can see it's made of debris, which we just plastered outward at the end of the construction. So with this current world getting filled up with debris, we found out that the best place to hide this debris is, of course, inside a building itself. Now you can see various examples. This is for Mr. Ramanujan in Pala. It's called Chirab. It's a wonderful tiny residence which we did, and the client was again somebody who was very patient, somebody who was very willing to experiment with waste debris because he understood that this is the need of the hour, need of the day, need of the future, that we have to keep experimenting with waste materials. So you can see literally us building with with this waste material. You can see all our walls are made with the shuttered debris walls, And we were initially quite a bit skeptical about the load bearing aspirations of it. So only few areas we made it load bearing so that we can check it out how much, as a whole module it will take the load. And we had initially figured out, okay, it is taking good load and everything. Still we were careful. We thought, okay, maybe this is not the time for us to go full on for like load bearing structure. So we gave here and there few columns, and as you can see, some help, but majorly these were all mud construction made with shutter debris wall. And the debris, honestly, and I'm very proud of this fact that we could literally procure from a 5 mile radius. Now that speaks for itself, ladies and gentlemen, that to procure debris from a 5 mile radius itself and to make a building out of it, it's something which we see as a very great achievement, because that is something which even our father of the nation said, that we have to procure materials from a 5 mile radius to make our sustainable housing. The jalis which you are seeing made with tiles again are the tiles which are local waste, which we converted into small jalis, so that the ventilation, vertical jalis, so that the ventilation allows it. You can see some of the residents of the house who are quietly enjoying such a nature. And then we proceeded further again with this experimentation. So experimentation doesn't stop. It never stops. It always continues. And in this particular area, we found out that there was a lot of stones that came up when we were excavating. You can see on your left side that there were a lot of stones which came out when we were excavating for the foundation for the site. And this made us think that if there are so many stones, how come we are not using it in our shuttered debris wall? And the end result, as you can see, a beautiful end result. After so many, again mismatch happens. Again we are not sure whether the load bearing of it is correct, so we have to test it. So we again did some few wrong things in here, but still we managed to create a wall, as you can see on the right side, with myself and Johnson, who is the contractor, and Akko, who is his nephew. You can see, it's all, so many family members also join part in making these kind of, like sustainable constructions. And our ties with the workers and the contractors is something which is well over the employee-employer relationship. We actually maintain more like a teacher student. Of course it is questioned who is a teacher, who is a student, but nevertheless it's more like a relationship where we learn a lot from our peers. So as you can see, the right side is where we combine this new found material in a particular unique site, and probably for the last time we would find so much of pebbles. We joined it with shutter debris wall, and the result is something like this, which I believe is something very unique uh, for this kind of construction. And thank you. And the fantastic part is that the walls and utilizing all these waste materials uh, was something which was very very honest. And the experimentation which we started way back in 2010, and this is a project which is happening in 2020, which got completed as recent as 2021 end or something, or 22 early January or something. I presented it, or I don't remember exactly, but you can imagine that the experimentation process which started way back in 2010 eventually brought us here, where we are very honestly utilizing materials like casurinas, which are considered just as scaffolding materials, not even considered as a proper, not timber. We were able to convert these materials also into housing material. These are some pictures which showcases, like how this particular residence is done. And now I would like to start a small video about where we have finally taken uh, this particular technology of construction. So here is a particular video. Am I still sharing? Is everybody able to see this, or am I? Hello? We can see it. Okay. So, so this is um, where we thought we could finally take, like we are still again finding new ways to elaborate on our experimentation process. So this is a small residence which we did. Uh, Now Kerala is a very tropical place, and as you can imagine, very close to the equator. So it is big deal for us to to get some shade away from the west sun. So this particular residence designed for late Hari Kumar, a wonderful character who always takes a lot of trips up into the Himalayas to get some peace of mind from the city life. Was very inspirational for me to formulate this design and understand something. So because of the west sun, I had to make an inclined huge wall. Now at that particular time, it was not decided that it would be shuttered debris wall, because shuttered debris wall for us was something which we used only in one-story or like small structures. So we found out that we had to do something which is as high as a three-story structure in this idea. And this is how the basic structure went. So we thought shuttered debris wall had to go 3 stories high to make such a structure. So these massive two walls hide the residence from the massive west sun glare during the afternoons, which was very important. So this was the start of this. Uh, it's any auspicious events in South India literally would start with breaking a coconut, and I am somebody who is not at all used to this practice. So thankfully, my mason guided me in doing this. So this is. We are adding 20 chutneys of 4 centigrade, 15 chutneys of. So we can make Gayatri silent there, who is explaining about the all materials. So you can see the mix was using somewhere around 7 to 8 percentage of cement, and then we were, as you can see, large lumps in there, which is the debris which we collect from the neighboring areas or even from the soil, which has a lot of big lumps of rocks which literally cannot be used in mud construction. So we are using that kind of materials. You can see when the guy is putting the shovel, all sorts of big huge debris which are used in this particular construction. So to the right, you can see actually another gentleman who is another client of mine. His name is Siji. So we were actually showcasing him how we are making these constructions. So this is us showing how the mix has to be done. Sometimes mixing it's kind of quite difficult. Checking the water proportion and all those things. It's almost like a family work kind of thing, where you are quite involved with the workers and making sure that the construction goes on smoothly, where all of us are understanding how the mix should be. Wallmakers is not a gender specific place, so and especially India being a place where there is a lot of gender questions. We initially itself we were very keen to make sure that our firm always promotes, because architecture predominantly, at least in our area, has a lot of girls who study the format or the field, and we wanted to make sure that all our architects, including men and women, are part of construction and learns the constructions. So you can see finally how we are doing. You can see the bottom walls which are already cast, and the shutters. We are casting these final walls. You can see you can actually see how the transformation has happened from the first time when we were initially doing, from how this is now eventually has become. So it's removing the cast of one of the. So now we will see how it eventually, how the final product eventually came through. Let us see that. The fantastic part in here is the entire narrative is given by my client himself, Mr. Harikumar, who is unfortunately not with us anymore. He passed away last year in a terrible accident. So, as in some ways, this is something which is really dedicated to him. So that is him who is talking about the project, whose entire he was the one who gave me the insight about the mountains and the peaks and everything, which I think reflected a lot in the design. So guys, one of the first things, so coming back actually to that, yeah, I'm finished, I'm almost done. So Marcus Cruz actually asked us, how much do you take time for one product to eventually reach? So I just showed you an experimentation process actually takes quite a long time to reach the final end product of it. So from the start of me doing a small shutter debris wall, which literally didn't work out, to finally come to this particular last project which I showcased, Shigra, it's almost a span of minimum 6 to 8 years before you can get a product into it. But that doesn't mean that you are not enjoying the journey in between. So this is what I firmly believe in, and now our new understanding of such structures. This is a recent construction which we are doing. So we are now going into another level of making this type of construction where we are, doing a bit more new and interesting, idea of these kind of structures. So I think that's it. Thank you guys for. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinu, for the amazing presentation, amazing lecture about the work. I'm sure a lot of people might have a lot of questions. So I would like to officially open a Q&A really quick. If you guys have anything to ask, feel free. The stage is open for everyone to ask Vinu anything you want. I'll actually get started if everyone's still, thinking and deciding if not to turn off the mute button. But I have a question actually, and it's amazing to see how many of the projects that you do is the outcome of research and development, right? Is to push the boundaries and push the limits of materials and figure out how to repurpose them or use them to create form. I'm actually curious to understand in your thought process how much is important, the percentage or somewhat of the equilibrium between this research and the actual development, like how much to explore and when to stop at right and build. And I'm interested to see your response to that.
Yeah, it's a quite interesting question. Thank you. The truth is, recently I just joined the Barbican exhibition in London, where like a lot of questions about climate crisis is happening, and we were a small part of that particular exhibition. Now, one thing which I found out, much to my dismay, is that we architects are doing very less to contribute to the climate change. Like everybody, starting from artists to political activists to car manufacturers to costume designers, are doing something. But architects, I find, are a bit behind. I feel, in doing something quite noteworthy, including myself. So the question is how much not the question shouldn't be how much I'm doing. The question should be how less we are doing. I believe we are at an age where the experimentation should reach to a whole new level, and we are, to tell you the truth, a bit behind, aren't we? So. Um, and first of all, whenever you think about a new site or a new place, you think about what. I don't think about how big the space should be, how how wonderful the space should be, how I should design. These are the general concerns of architects, which is great. But my general thought process would be, how do we minimize the damage that an architect brings to a place, new place? Whenever an architect is doing something or a construction is happening, it's a lot of damage to the ecology of the particular place, isn't it? So how minimum we can do? So you have to search, and when you are searching for new materials, you often end up with waste materials which are discarded. Some fantastic materials come. So yeah, so that experimentation has to be the norm, but it's a slow process, but it's a fantastic process. It's not how you think slow. It is when I'm saying 6 and 7 years, it might be worrisome to some of the architects or somebody who is here, but actually it is not. It's quite fantastic.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much. And does anyone else have any questions? Don't be shy, guys. He can bite you through a virtual space.
Somebody's dancing.
I did okay. If no one's gonna answer something, I have a lot of questions. This is a very inspiring lecture, right? To see what is possible within collaboration, especially thinking about this issue that you were just mentioning. The idea of sustainability and how much we can do as architects, to make a difference and actually, shift a little bit of how much we're impacting this planet, right? I'm actually curious to see your opinion about the distortion between what's happening in education and training the future generation of architects, and this need for taking action and this need for applying sustainability. How much of the training could actually be modified to solve some of these issues. in your opinion, from an academic perspective?
This was definitely the question that was being pondered for some time while I was in London. So we were in the school, Bartlett School of Architecture and the AA School of London. And in both studios, some fantastic experimentation is happening. The the best part of it is, like people are going in a completely new direction, which was quite alien to me too. I never knew that, like such a direction was possible. There were kids who are making things with seaweed. There are kids who are making with bacteria from kombucha. So some of them are actually making hydrogen varieties with algae and stuff like that. So there is a lot of wonderful experimentation happening. Unfortunately, these are happening in the lab and not on field. So my suggestion, this is my suggestion to many of them, was that like the allies which architects need a team to build, of course. And very often we think that our ally is the client. A client agrees to such a thing, we have to present it to a client, and then other things follow, which is quite untrue. I believe that the clients may not be the most difficult part of course, getting a client to accept your insane proposal might be a big thing, but the truth is, I believe that it is not just the client that who is a difficult thing to regulate, or like to navigate, but I believe it is making a good labor team. A good ally means making a team who is going to take ownership of what you build. So let's say you make an algae block. You need few other workers to join with you. They shouldn't look at you as a dumb fool. You have to prove it to them. You have to create a brotherhood or a bond with these workers. And thankfully, we in the third world or in the developing countries have a lot of brethren, a lot of people there. Unlike the West, we have a lot of our fellow members who are thirsty, crazy, and hungry, like us, who can join forces, though it might be intimidating at first. I believe so. That was my takeaway point or advice that I gave to many of the new stalwarts of the industry. That I told them that this is probably the way I would do it if I was in their shoes, because we can train our fellow people and they would become the new cause for construction and everything. As you can see, from my very first stage, I started bringing in my brother, other people who would care to join me. We had to, like teach them, learn the work. So those things were happening. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, if no one has any more questions, I would like to finalize by saying how deeply grateful I am for you coming and presenting on the stage. I'm not sure if it was your first presentation in a virtual stage, but
this is my first presentation in a virtual stage. Thank you, guys. I virgin presentation. So yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you did your first virtual presentation here on the Sunken Blimp Stage. Thank you so much, Vinu. Amazing inspiration, and I can't wait to see what's next for Wallmakers. It's been a pleasure, and honestly, I can't wait for the next time you come here with new exciting projects to share with us. Thank you so much.
Sure. I will be sure to be a continuous presence in the metaverse. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. This is quite fun. It's beautiful. Thank you.
And thank you everyone as well that joined us here today. It's always a pleasure seeing, community members coming back, new people, joining us. So thank you guys. And just remember that we do this every Friday. So make sure to keep coming back.